Do you accept? Have you got milder about this as you've got older?
Yes.
Have you got more accepting that you may be wrong, less certain?
Well, yes, of course, a scientist may always be wrong, and that's definitely a thing that a scientist has to say.
Infamous atheist Richard Dawkins appeared on the Piers Morgan show to discuss a litany of topics, and as expected, the conversation shifted to religion versus atheism very quickly. During the segment, Morgan and Dawkins joust and defend their beliefs, but toward the end of the video, Dawkins said something that was extremely telling. Let's get right into it.
I want to start with some big theme stuff. And I guess there's no bigger theme than evolution itself. And I think I'd ask a question like this. What do we know now about where we've come from? And what don't we know?
Okay, we know once you've got a self-replicating entity, which nowadays is DNA, but it wasn't originally, once you've got life started, once natural selection, Darwinian natural selection has got going, then we pretty much understand the 4 billion year history of what's given rise to us and all other living creatures. We don't know how it started, and that's still a mystery, and it may always be a mystery because it happened a very long time ago, and we may never know exactly what did happen. We know the kind of thing it had to be.
What kind of thing do you think it was?
It was the origin of a self-replicating molecule, a molecule that makes copies of itself. DNA is such a molecule, but the original one was almost certainly not DNA, because DNA is it's been called a high-tech replicator. There had to be a precursor to DNA. The laws of chemistry gave rise to a molecule which had this unusual property of making copies of itself, which mutated, changed in random ways. And that gave rise to competition between rival versions of it, and that gave rise to the whole panoply of life eventually.
OK, so I'm a Catholic. I was raised a Catholic. So I'm a religious person, which I know is anathema to you, and we'll come to that. But my arguments with atheists, historically, have always come down to one thing, and maybe you've got an answer which will persuade me of the folly of my ways, which is this. What was there at the start?
We don't know. But I don't know, and you don't know.
But no human brain, unless you want to correct me, can actually comprehend nothingness, right?
No, but it's a fallacy to think that because I don't understand how it happened, therefore God did it. I mean, that's just weak.
Well, no, OK, but I'm prepared to have an open mind about this.
Yes.
But somebody did. And I just have never met a human brain that can explain to me what happened before, say you go for the Big Bang argument. What was there before? What does nothing look like?
Physicists are debating this. I'm not a physicist, but they're debating it. My point is that they don't know, and I don't know, and you don't know, and it doesn't help to postulate a God that did it.
But you're certain it's not a God, and yet you admit you don't know.
No, I'm certain that it doesn't help to postulate something very complicated at the outset, because what we've got is primeval simplicity, and from that stems everything. And what science does, it starts with simplicity, which is relatively easy to understand, and from that it develops into the whole of the universe and the whole of life. It doesn't help to start with complexity, and a creator has to be complex, whatever else he is.
The reason that I subscribe to the theory there must be a more powerful being out there than anything the human race has created is because, like I say, a human brain can't comprehend nothingness or what may have come before nothingness. We can't. We're not able to extrapolate what that is, right? I mean, no scientist can explain nothingness, can they? Plausibly.
Well, maybe they can't. You'd have to talk to a physicist. But even
Could you explain it?
No, quite not a physicist. But
you're a very smart guy, and you're a very vehement atheist.
No, I'm not. I'm not that vehement.
Well, you're pretty vehement. I mean, you just think all belief in all gods is ludicrous, right?
I think that it doesn't help to introduce complexity at the outset. That's my point.
No, I get that, but
no, well, I don't think you do get it.
Well, no, I do, because but you're asking me to consider that my own belief in a deity that may be above human thinking and understanding and brain power, that was there universally, that my theory is scientifically flawed, whereas I would throw back at you, OK, but I need to be given an alternative. I need some scientist somewhere to explain to me, right, 4 billion years, all right, but then what was there before that?
Well, scientists can't answer that, and what they say is things like it's like going north of the North Pole. I'm sure. I gather you recently introduced Stephen Hawking. He probably said that to you.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah.
But the point is this: science can explain things starting with simplicity and working up to complexity.
No, I get that, but where science can't explain something, i.e., in the case I just gave you, is it not possible that you're all wrong on the atheist side of the argument?
We could be all wrong, but what?
And you might get a shocking surprise one day when you're no longer with us.
You might,
and you discover we were right all along.
It's possible.
Do you concede it's possible?
It's highly unlikely.
You don't know, though, do you?
No, of course I don't. Scientists take a pride in admitting what they don't know. And they don't know what happened before the Big Bang. They don't even admit that the word before means anything with respect to the Big Bang. Physicists will tell you.
But it has to. I mean,
Well, it doesn't, because that's a naive statement. Physicists will say that you do not have to say there was a time began at the Big Bang, is what some physicists will say.
Yeah, but to which I immediately respond with my basic human brain. Well, OK, if time began, when did it begin?
Well, quite.
And what was there before?
Quite.
Which is a fairly obvious question.
It is a very obvious question. It's too obvious, and physicists will tell you that you're being naive.
Yeah, but they don't know why I'm being naive, because they can't provide any actual scientific evidence.
As you've just said, the human brain is not capable of grasping
Right, that's my
things.
point.
Yes.
So why is it not possible that there is a superior being, power, which many people believe in different ways?
It's possible there are fairies at the bottom
God.
of the garden. I mean, all sorts of things are possible. You can't deny that.
Well, except I've never seen fairies at the end of the garden, have you?
No, you've never seen God either.
No, but you don't know for sure that either doesn't exist.
No, I don't know that fairies don't exist. Fairies may be leprechauns, for all I know.
Do you accept? Have you got milder about this as you've got older?
Yes.
Have you got more accepting that you may be wrong, less certain?
Well, yes, of course, a scientist may always be wrong, and that's definitely a thing that a scientist has to say. But I'm not vehement. You're provoking me to be vehement because you're taking that tone with me.
Well, you've been provoked before.
Yes.
And you've been quite vehement in response. I'm actually not trying to provoke you. I'm genuinely curious.
Yes.
Because I don't have all the answers, but I'm always sceptical of people who think they do. I don't think you do.
Absolutely not.
But your admission that you don't have all the answers, to me, is quite interesting, because it lends the possibility you might be wrong.
Well, it's not interesting. I mean, no scientist has all the answers. But the one thing you shouldn't say is that because I don't know, therefore God did it. That's a
What do you think
cowardly
happens when you die?
As Bertrand Russell said, I believe that when I die, I shall rot, and nothing of my ego shall remain.
That's it.
Yes.
The end. Nothing. There's nothing else.
How could it be otherwise? I mean, you have a brain, an evolved brain, which works by nerve impulses, and when that decays, what could possibly be left?
So you don't believe in, for example, a spirit or a soul? None of that that's all conditional entirely on a link to an actual cerebral...
Yes, if by spirit or soul you mean something that outlasts the brain, then I do not believe in it, no.
Really?
Well, how could I?
Well, people who've gone through weird sort of out-of-body, near-death experiences where they've been pronounced dead for a few minutes, they always talk about, almost all of them talk about this weird...
There's a tunnel with light at the end.
Yeah, so, I mean, it could be, couldn't it?
Yes, well, read Susan Blackmore on that.
Would you like to be pleasantly surprised, or would you be appalled if you were wrong?
Well, I would be pleasantly surprised for a while. I don't think I'd like to live for all eternity, would you?
I don't know, it depends what it's like.
Well...
If eternity was watching, cricket at Lord's all day and watching Arsenal win every weekend, yes, give me that.
Really?
Well, if eternity is blissful and a wonderful experience, as some people believe...
I think there is something actually rather frightening about eternity. And I'd be quite glad to be spending it under a general anaesthetic.
Do you fear, given the finality of what you think death to be, do you fear it as you get older?
I fear the process of dying, but when you're dead, you don't know anything. It's just like before you were born. I think it was Mark Twain said, I was dead for billions of years before I was born and never suffered the smallest inconvenience.
But when you have loved ones who've died, for example...
That's tragic.
Yeah, but how do, as somebody who believes literally in the finality, the rotting of a body and that's it, it must be worse than for somebody like me, where I genuinely believe there's something better to come.
It's worse, so what?
Not so what, just curious that it must be for you awful each time, far worse than it is for people who have a belief.
Yes, it is.
A lot of people take great comfort from their belief in God, that there is a different life out there.
Yes, they do.
You don't have that sucker at all.
No.
So is it incredibly painful? More for you, perhaps, than somebody
No, I don't think so.
who is a believer?
Let me put it to you this way. If you really did believe it, wouldn't you say to the person on the deathbed, looking forward to seeing you in purgatory?
A lot of people say, looking forward to seeing you in another life, yeah.
Yes.
A lot of people say that.
You don't really believe it, though.
Actually, I sort of do. Yeah, I do, actually. Because I find it, when I think about it in big picture, which is your great thing, I think, how likely is it that we just got put on this planet, Earth, as human beings, as a one-off kind of entity that existed here, and then you die and that's it. And it only lasted 4 billion years, and before that was absolutely nothing at all. How likely is that to have been the case? I don't think that's likely. My human brain, which is limited, does not think that is likely.
I think it's very likely. I think
Really?
It's exactly what happened, yes.
We are a tiny, tiny dot in the universe, right?
Exactly. We are tiny.
So you don't know what else is out there, really, other than what scientists have already established.
No, I think it's highly likely that there are other beings out there which are much cleverer than we are. Superhuman, not supernatural, but superhuman. And I would love to meet them. I probably couldn't understand what they said.
Dawkins doesn't know how we got here, but he knows exactly how it happened. Come on. For someone as old as Richard Dawkins to continue in this unbelief in God is actually very sad. But like most atheists, Dawkins constantly deviates from his own beliefs. Dawkins once said that there's nothing but blind, pitiless indifference. But when questioned about the finality of death, he admitted that he feels hopeless and saddened. Why not indifferent? Why do you feel these things if there's nothing but pitiless indifference? Moreover, Dawkins admits that it's possible that he could be wrong. If that's the case, what's the justification for being an atheist? Why not just say you don't know if there is a God? Why not just be agnostic? Why not take that same position as people say, I don't know how the universe came into existence? Why not say that you don't know if there is a God? This is why atheism is 100% a belief, because they don't have 100% knowledge of everything that can be known. Therefore, no atheist can say with certainty that there is no God, because they don't know it all. So why maintain a flawed belief like atheism? Well, Dawkins is similar to people like Pharaoh. Dawkins has a hardened heart. Pharaoh hardened his heart toward God. And as Moses constantly tried to get Pharaoh to turn from his ways, his heart grew more hardened. And eventually, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. And when God did that, that was it for Pharaoh. It was over. Now Dawkins talks like a fool, professing his belief in the likelihood of aliens rather than God who created his brain that he's using. Is that not a level of faith? He mocks and scoffs at Christians who profess a faith in God with evidence through Jesus Christ, but he turns around and professes a belief in aliens. No evidence for those, by the way, but he believes it's likely that they exist. As Morgan pressed Dawkins on the possibility of God, Dawkins showed his hand by making the snarky remark about, well, fairies and leprechauns could exist. That is not a good faith statement. That is a mock, that is a scoff, and it's a straw man of the Christian belief. There's no evidence for leprechauns or fairies, but there is evidence for God through Jesus Christ. But Dawkins says that's weak. The reality is everything he stands for is weak. At the end of the day, all we can do is pray for Richard Dawkins. If you enjoyed this video, you want more content like this, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel, like this video. I'll be back next week with another one. This is Pastor Frederick. This is about a book, and everything I do is about a book. Peace.